Episode 1, what is hemp really? So honestly, this is a question that it comes in several forms. It either comes as, how y'all be doing this? That's one of them. What you got going on over here? That's another one. This ain't nothing but CBD, right? That's another one. What you talking about hemp, man? What's a weed? That's another one. But what the difference is between the cannabis plant, marijuana, and hemp is zero. They're just aliases, right, for the same thing. Cannabis is Cannabis sativa L. Now, there is an indica varietal and there is a ruderalis varietal, but that's cannabis, okay? Basic Latin understanding of it is Cannabis sativa L. Hemp is the same thing. That's what the word that was used to describe its fibers, its rope, its uses, right? But cannabis is the Latin, that is what it is. Marijuana was a word invented by the DEA in the 1930s, specifically around 1937, where they produced the first Marijuana Tax Act, and that's where they started taxing marijuana. That was actually repealed in the 70s because it was found unconstitutional, ironically. But a hemp ban has stayed in place since, even though it was the largest cash crop. So there is no difference. When I say hemp, I'm saying marijuana, right? The problem with that is legally, right? Legally, marijuana is illegal. So what do they mean when they say that? Well, they classify any hemp that has more than 0.03% delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, all right, which is only one of many THCs. But that one THC is what's measured historically. Now, they just passed a bill, all right, that's going to redefine that to mean anything that has 0.03% or more, or 0.04 milligrams per package, which blows everything out of the water. Okay, we'll get back to that. So, no fundamental difference. Hemp is cannabis. Cannabis is hemp. Those both are what we're referring to in the legal system as marijuana. It just comes down to percentages. Inside the cannabis plant, you have multiple THCs. You have Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, THCV, THCP, all right? And then you also have cannabinoids, which are CBD, CBDA, CBG, CBGA, CBN, CBNO. They all come from the same base plant. What they produce is going to be determined by the genetics. I alluded to earlier, there are 3 species: sativa, indica, and ruderalis. Ruderalis isn't the most well studied. It was discovered in the 90s in Siberia, okay? And it's the hardiest version of the plant we know of. Ruderalis is where autoflowering comes from. So if you buy buds or plants or whatever to grow, or you go online and you look, you want to get into it, and you'll see the option for auto-flowering plants, well, that's not a pure sativa or indica. It can't be by nature. They will sell it as sativa or indica, but it has to be part ruderalis or it wouldn't auto-flower, okay? How do they do that? It's really simple. I'll get into it in more detail in a future episode, but it's basically called cross-pollination. You take genetics of one and genetics of another, and you cross-pollinate them by leaving them in a similar environment. It's really simple. So, there is not going to be any pure strains that are auto-flowering, okay? Unless it's a pure ruderalis, in which case it's going to be very low in THC or CBD, most likely, because it wasn't really produced for that. How they engineer sativa, indica, or ruderalis to be stronger and stronger is also through cross-pollination. Taking varietals that produce at a higher level and cross-pollinating with another one, and then another one, and then another one, slowly building. That's also how you can build the different effects that you get from different strains. Because as you cross-pollinate and the plant's genetics change, so do their underlying terpene profiles. I'll explain more about terpenes later, but that's a big actor in your cannabis. A lot of people come up to the booth and they just want to get blazed, but they don't want to feel bad either. And they don't understand that that's all about the strain you're picking because of the terpenes within it. So if you pick an indica that's really high in humulene, you can expect to be very calm and sedated. Whereas if you pick a sativa really high in terpinolene and pinene, you can expect to be really up and alert. If you pick a hybrid that's in the middle of them, you're just going to get a balanced effect. It's the terpenes more so than the cannabinoids that are causing that. Say, cannabinoids operate in the sense that most cannabinoids, CBN, CBG, CBA, are therapeutic. They're anti-tumor, they're anti-anxiolytic, which is anti-anxiety, they're analgesics, all right? THC, D8, D9, D10, for the most part are intoxicating, and that's where you're going to get your dissociative effects, You're going to get your neurological effects, your neuropathic relief, diabetic pain is that weird stinging needling pain is better affected. It activates your gabapentin or your GABA receptors, which is what gabapentin does. So if you know Lyrica or gabapentin, they put a lot of people on really high doses of these to try to mimic your body's natural response that it would get from using, THC. Your body produces a natural chemical. I'll get into more of this later, but your body produces an actual chemical called anandamide. And anandamide is your own natural cannabinoid, and THC just mirrors it. So when you're not feeling good, your body's already using cannabinoids to fix the problem through your endocannabinoid system. But this video is about what the real difference is between me and the guy on the street. Bottom line, safety. It really comes down to safety. I can't tell you what you're getting on the street. It didn't come with any paperwork. It hasn't been tested. And honestly, most of the people that are selling it, that's not their concern. They're all about the Benjis, right? Not to toot my own horn, but I walked away from good money, guaranteed good money, to do this because it's about health. It's about love. It's about spreading a medicine that has been so misunderstood that even I, as a consumer of the medicine, didn't thoroughly understand it until the most 3-4 years, really. Once it became legal and I was able to study it more thoroughly. So I want to bring to you all the information that I can that will help you long term. I have no plans to monetize, all right? So I'm not trying to convince you to come buy my stuff. If you're getting street product and you're just trying to get lit and have a good time and you're fine with it, that's good. This isn't probably what you're looking for. I will do other series, about other things, and maybe you'll be interested in those. But this one isn't for you. This one is for the people that they use this product to sustain themselves, right? They've got medical conditions, they've got anxiety, they've got issues, and they're trying to fix them. So we're going to get into how you blend different cannabinoids to do different things. But I'm going to give you the basic structure, and then I'll figure out what the hell I'm going to say next. So basically, I'm pretending right now that I've got my normal board in front of me, and there's a line of cannabinoids in front of it. And how it works is the cannabinoid that's first produced is called CBGA. That's cannabigerolic acid, okay? That is the very first cannabinoid. It's called the mother cannabinoid. From it, all others stream. So depending on the species, the biosynthesis will go like this. CBGA will convert to CBG, which will convert to CBC on its way to becoming CBDA, all right? And it will stay there until harvested. We're going to pick that up in a minute. The THC train, CBGA, will become THCA, which then will stay pretty much in that format until harvested, okay? So now you've got CBDA, and also you do have still left over some CBGA that hasn't fully carboxylated. You got some things still in there. They're still all waiting. Once the plant's harvested and begins to dry, there's a process called decarboxylation that takes place where the light, the heat, cause the acidic molecule to basically fall apart and it becomes the thing itself. So in the case of CBDA, you get CBD. CBGA becomes CBG, right? So all of the stuff that hasn't fully synthesized at this point begins to synthesize, and you start getting other cannabinoids like CBN. CBN is what THC becomes after it's synthesized all the way through to the N, and it can be used for sleep and sedation and other things. But the important part here, what we're going to talk about for those street versus legit users, is the THC train. Because THCA, up until this most recent law, is the one that's the most controversial because it's federally legal. It's never been made illegal. And if you look at a plant that's been grown with less than 0.03 D9, right, that's all they care about. Well, THCA is what becomes D9. So you can have a plant that's extremely high in THCA, and because it hasn't decarboxylated, it hasn't been harvested, it's still in its state, it's legal to be cut, sold to you. That's how that works. Now, that THCA hemp, once it's been harvested and begins to decarboxylate, goes through the exact same process as your street weed. THCA becomes THC, which consists of Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, and THCP are the intoxicating ones. Now, there's also an offshoot called THCV, which is tetrahydrocannabidiol, which is not intoxicating, but is where we get our stimulating effects and our appetite suppressing effects, typically from sativas, but in other strains as well. You can actually have indicas that do some of that as well. It all comes out of the THCV. But that's where I'm going to be a little confused with the law changes, because THCV isn't intoxicating, but it is THC. So anyway, once that happens, the street weed, the dispensary weed, and the hemp store weed are the same product. And based on the genetics that you started with, you're going to have varying amounts of either the CBD or the THC. So typically, ruderalis plants were bred with CBD, with sativas and indicas to specifically increase the concentration of CBD in them while lowering the concentration of THC. It's done the same way as those that are trying to increase the level of THC while lowering the level of CBD. It's all about cross-pollination. So it's just as difficult and just as hard, and there should be just as much respect shown to a high-yield CBD varietal as a high THC yield varietal, because honestly, it's probably more complicated to do the CBD one simply from the terms of politics and economic turnover. You can make a lot more money selling a low-grade THC to somebody who just wants to get blazed than a high-grade CBD to that same person. You have to sell it to people that need it for medicine. The reason why I'm doing this is because of the stigma of the medicine. People are afraid to use it. They think it's weed. They don't understand all these big complicated things I'm talking about. And on the flip side, the street guy just wants to get blazed. He thinks that my stuff won't do that. Truth is all of it works. You just need to know how. And that's what these series are going to be about. And that's what we're going to continue to do as we move forward. So this is the part that I hate, because this is the part where I got to think about saying stupid things like comment sections and, liking and subscribing and all of that stuff. And like I said, I have no desire to monetize. What you can do for me is you can pay attention and you can tell somebody else. You can send it to them and ask them to pay attention. I was having a conversation with a gentleman right before I started this series about what's most important to me. And I can tell you, hemp is extremely important to me. The legality of it, keeping it. I serve veterans. I serve the elderly. I serve people that are in wheelchairs, like myself, that not only cannot take alternative medicines, but they don't. I don't want fentanyl. I don't want Vicodin. Had an old man in my booth this week, missing half his leg, talking about how he's got Vicodin in his pocket. He doesn't want to feel that way. He wants to feel good. All right? So that's what this is about, and that's why I'm doing it. But I'm going to be addressing a lot of different topics. I'm going to be addressing faith. And if you aren't into that thing, no problem, but I highly suggest you pay attention. I'll probably be discussing finances, because I want to show a lot of you people how to very quickly start guaranteeing yourself some security in the coming future. I am going to say things like gold and silver, but I'm not going to put a company up here that you can go buy from today and get my little piece. I'm going to tell you how to turn your cash into gold and silver without anybody knowing or bothering you. Okay? And then I'm possibly also going to talk about security, specifically cybersecurity, and how you can protect yourself. My background is in networking. I was a network engineer for 25 years. I've worked for big government. I've been to all the big cybersecurity conferences. I've worked with the Israeli guys that actually built their internal network, which is completely offline, by the way. If you want to do business with them, you got to get inside. They don't even have it plugged up to the internet. That's smart. And I can show you how to do those same things, how to protect yourself. And then we're going to develop our own communication system as a community where you and I, whoever you are, I don't care if you're in Dallas, Texas, I don't care if you're in Juneau, we'll have a two-way messaging communication that no one can shut down. Believe me? Probably not, but I'll prove it. So stay tuned.